the ex-communist party, the ex-communist scacchiera, because it's not only one party, it is three parties actually. The Communist Party went into three different directions. Now, I don't want to tell you all the stories, but these three parties try to find new alliances, a new vote on the ground of a pacifist platform. After 9/11, the war, the American war against Saddam Hussein and against terrorists become the field where the left is able to find a new anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish alliance. So the people that will be marching from the left in the streets against Sharon and against Bush, they will be marching at the same time against the United States and against Israel. This is where all the situation becomes, in the same time, more traditional and more complicated. More traditional because the Italian Communist Party has a long tradition of hating Israel because of his alliance with the Western, with the Western side, namely America. This is after 1967, right? And the same will happen now after the year 2001. The same kind of relationship is there. Israel maneuver the Americans in the Middle Eastern arena. The Americans maneuver Israel in the Middle Eastern arena. So these unholy alliances is considered now to end up. The situation has changed again. Sharon has been the most hated with Netanyahu. I think that also Netanyahu finds a lot of hate in Europe and particularly in Italy. Because, well, I've seen here many discussions about Sharon. Now I want to put here a very personal point of view in Israel. But me, as a journalist and an Italian that has been writing about 200 pieces about Sharon, trying to explain that he was not the devil, when I found myself in Israel in the situation with the disengagement, seeing Sharon accused again by Israeli to be a devil, well, I remember the many times that I entered a room and they were telling me during the last Intifada, it's terrible over there, yeah. And I was waiting for the next sentence. And the next sentence was always the same. That's Sharon. That's Sharon. That was, what was that? That was the criticism and the hate toward the defensive shield. Defensive shield and the fight against terrorism, forbidden to fight terrorism. And against the defensive fence, called the division wall. Always called the division wall. So these two factors, together with the image of Sharon, became the main anti-Semitic issue that has been, I teach in the university and I write on a newspaper. This has been the worst fields of all because all the intellectual side, writers, journalists, professors in the university have been the most stupid of all. And nobody was really understanding what was going on over here. And while people were understanding well, if a terrorist attacks you, then you have to respond somehow. And this has become the public opinion, at least for a part. I won't go into the boycott in the university, which is also an issue on its own. If there will be a question, I will answer to that. I will only finish like this. Berlusconi has been prime minister twice, one in 1994 and the second time in 2001. In the meanwhile, the first time he has been prime minister only for 1 year. So there has been a long period of intermission. in that period, we had there as a prime minister, three different prime ministers: Giuliano Amato, Romano Prodi, that is going to be probably the next prime minister, and D'Alema. D'Alema, who is the worst enemy of Israel. While now, Berlusconi has changed, has deeply changed the politics of Italy toward Israel. He has come to Israel several times, has been on the side of Israel in defending itself from terrorism. Still, it's a very strong sustainer of the line that says two states for two people, and this is the Italian line. And what I must tell you, that there has been a major change in the left. 1 month ago, in a general meeting of the left that is preparing itself for the election, and is preparing itself also to win the elections, because probably the left on the 6th of April, when there would be the election, will win the election. We had Fassino, who is the secretary of the DS, the ex-Communist Party, that said, we are guilty toward Israel. We have been considering, yes, exactly, we are guilty. We have been considering only that was the afterwards of the disengagement. And so again, the hope to see the Palestinians getting as much territory as possible, because that's always the back mind of, and of seeing the peace, and of seeing a decline of terrorism too. But he said something very important. He said, he didn't say anymore, we want to see the Palestinians and the Israeli two states side to side. He said, we want to see a democratic Palestinian state and an Israeli and Israel side to side. This is very important because it gives value to Israel, in the sense that Israel is a democratic state, no doubts. And so even if there is no strategy in it, there is not much thought, in my opinion. On the other side, you have D'Alema, that is in the same party, that says, well, let's see what Hamas does. I jump to the subject of Hamas, and I just touch it and go away from it immediately. But there are now inside the left these two subjects, and as far as I know, it will be long and it will be hard, and nothing is written yet, because there is a tragic phenomenon today, which is that the intellectual elite do not cope with the reality. I think that never ever in history, this is not only for Italy, this is for all Europe, that the intellectual elite have given up their very important role of leading the people in understanding what is going on. Here we have these leading elites making people get far away from understanding what is Muhammad cartoon meant, getting far away from understanding what Israel is doing, getting away from understanding what Hamas is. The elite run away from the reality nowadays. So I leave all the story with a question mark.
At Harvard, for the first person who has really walked through what is behind the Israeli masochism of a certain large part of the Israeli society. The second is a personal observation, because I want to tell you something which I don't think is anywhere publicly known. One of the former Israeli ambassadors, he lives no longer in Rome, told me, why Craxi swung the Italian Socialist Party behind the Arabs, and took it away from where it historically had been under Pietro Nenni in favor of Israel. You have to understand that in Italy all the parties in power have been corrupt in a major way, that in fact all the politicians are at the top, even the ones we most believed in, were corrupt, received money in illegal ways. On some it has been proven, on many others everybody knows it, but it hasn't been proven. Craxi came to Israel one day and tried to get, look at that strange story, he tried to get the agency for the Citrus Marketing Board of Israel for the Socialist Party, which means for himself. המועצה לשיווק פרי הדר. So that agency was held by a socialist, a private person, Gentili, who was a great friend of Israel and a supporter of the Socialist Party. So the Israelis, not used to this kind of political corruption, refused it. Then Craxi went to the Arab side, got paid extensively, and took the party into a pro-Arab position. It's a story which has never been published, and I wouldn't have said it if the person who told me had been still alive, because he knew it as an Israeli ambassador. But it's a story to be kept in the back of our mind in order to understand Italy. Now, questions. Avner Falk first.
Well, Fiamma, tante grazie for a very, very informative lecture. Just one question. I have many, but I'll restrict myself to one, and that is that you mentioned in passing the racial laws of the fascists. So I want to take you back to the 1930s and 40s, Mussolini and his actions against Jews. Now, the question has to do with a comparison with Germany. In Germany, they have been dealing with their past in many different ways. They have a term called Vergangenheitsbewältigung, which means the mastery of the past. And they have been trying to psychologically deal with this in ways like, for example, sending volunteers to Israel in a kind of repentance action and to make up for the crimes. And the older generation, the younger generation, it's very complex. My question is there any such psychological or social phenomenon in Italy dealing with the past under the fascists in some kind of open public way? And if there isn't, why isn't there? Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I take some other question or no?
Are there any more questions? David Zohar.
Thank you again for a very interesting lecture on Italy. My question arises from a news item last week. Just before the meeting in Sicily of the defense ministers of NATO, I was surprised pleasantly to see that the defense minister of Italy recommended that Israel be invited to join NATO. I would like your opinion why he did it. Did he have the backing of his government? Was it just his own idea? I know that it was not accepted by the NATO ministers, but nonetheless it was a very pleasant surprise from that direction. Thank you.
Ambassador Minardi.
First of all, thank you a lot to Fiamma for the most interesting lecture. I have very short points. One, Natalia Ginsburg said, and it is useful perhaps to recall it, you know it, amo l'ebreo dalla schiena ricurva. You translate.
I love, you try to see my translation skill. I love the Jew with the bent back.
Yeah, so that gives the whole idea. This was in 73.
Saint Augustine said it
then
1500 years ago. Saint Augustine. Yeah.
He wanted to kill us all, but
This is the
Natalia was Jewish, so that's
then
Let them survive and not thrive. Fourth century.
No, the Jew has a witness. Okay.
Then I fully agree about the left and the Jews, but don't forget, please, people like Sergio Romano, and Barbara Spinelli, and Azor Rosa, and so on, who were no less anti-Semitic. Last point, the war against Iraq, or against Saddam. The Pope, John Paul II, gave his very strong support to the pacifist camp and against the Americans. And so we had a very strange, but going on for years, alliance between the extremists on the left and the Pope. Thank you.
Okay, Fiamma, take these and then we go for a second round. I have Ambassador Daniel Gal and I have Dr. Shalom Friedman.
Shall I read?
You take first.
Si.
Allora, there is one question that is the one about the NATO that just goes on its own. Now, I think that Martino is sincere when he says that he wants, and it is not his idea, but that it is something that is a political issue. We have to remember here that Marco Pannella has been for a long time, he's the secretary of the Radical Party, very, very pro-Israeli. And for a long time he has been advocating that Israel will enter the European Union. And Martino now is asking Israel to enter the NATO. Now, teach it how to really fight against terrorism. And I think that they will succeed, you know what? I think that most in the NATO than in the European Union, in my opinion. But by the way, in a military and intelligence agreement between Israel and the NATO is already there. So it's easier. There are already, they are not highways, they are fields, but there is something where to walk on in this direction. I believe in a NATO, in a military alliance more than, why? Because the European Union has standards and laws that would put Israel in a cage. So Israel would never accept that, being in the situation where it was. While from a military and an intelligence point of view, I think that this would be easier.
May I just add to that?
Please.
Those of you who heard Rafael Badaji speak at the Adenauer conference, a conference we did together with Adenauer, he presented that case very strongly, and he said it is supported by former Spanish right-wing Prime Minister Aznar, who really, he has produced, Aznar and Badaji have produced a document on behalf of their think tank which advocates the entrance of Israel into NATO.
So this adds to the realism of the idea. It might take years, but it's there. Now, about the racial laws and also the things that Minervi say, they take up the subject of Catholicism. Why Italy has never really make a real mea culpa about the racial laws? Because it's a Catholic country. And it absolves itself according to a mentality and to a diffused historiography that was partly changed by De Felice, by the historian De Felice, that makes fascism look like an elite choice, which was not true, as De Felice shows very, very well. It was a mass regime built with the Catholic masses, and where all the issues of anti-Semitism were widely supported. And unfortunately, this is the real story. Even if Italians are more sympathetic than the Germans, but the idea that look at how much the church fights against. And Minervi knows a lot about it, having written at length about the story. Look how they defend Pius the 12th, with all that he has done, beyond any reasonable doubt. You know, it's in the nature of a Catholic mentality, historiography, tradition, and population to continuing absolving itself, and to think that after all, there was Hitler that was much worse than Mussolini, which is true. Hitler was much worse than Mussolini. I don't want to go into it, and so that's the reason why, in front of something that is worse than you, then you can save yourself somehow. No, and the answer so is no. There is not a particular. There is nothing like a real deep, solemn. Mea culpa, like a deep thought about oneself. Just culpabilizing the Nazi, yes, they do that. But thinking about themselves deeply, I don't know if you agree with me, the person that we are here in experience of the subject, Manfred, but it seems to me that this is the main reason. About John Paul II and the pacifists, I also think that Sergio is right, even if we must never forget that John Paul opened a different perception of Israel, coming to Israel, recognizing Israel. We cannot put it too down. On the other side, it's true that he didn't close the door to the pacifist movements and to all the wrong idea about terrorism. But what? After all, he opened the door to Benedetto XVI. That is better than the other pope. Now I'm going very much, I'm a journalist, you'll forgive me, yes? And so I want to tell you that this pope can be a much better friend of the Jews. See, I think, don't you think so? I mean, you don't think so? Well, we can discuss it, it's very interesting. I think that because this pope feels that he is sieged, that the church is sieged by the Muslim, by Islam, he feels himself into an epochal struggle. I don't know his real feeling about the Jews, what are they? He might be deep in his heart thinking that he must convert all the Jews. This is quite possible, because being him a theologian, if there is here somebody that is a Catholic, might illuminate us more theologically. But on the other side, I think that he is ready to fight alongside with the Jews against the Islamic danger. This is
By the way, in the next issue of the Jewish Political Studies Review, we will have an essay from Ambassador Minervi on the ambivalence of John Paul II, which will deal in great detail with this. Danny?
Yes, thank you. Thank you again for your good lecture that remembering us pleasant and unpleasant moment of the Italian politics in Israel. I would be very glad if you can give us more and elaborate on one aspect of the Italian politics of the left, especially. It's a question of this double game concerning the Jews and Israel. I remember they used to be so pro-Jews and at the same time so anti-Israeli, organizing, giving millions at this time, not of lira but of dollars, to organize exhibition on the history of the Jews, Jewish film festival, and it was impossible to organize a week of the Israeli film, for instance, by the same people, communist parties, especially in Venice, in Bologna, in Torino, they were always. And what is very sad that the Jews from the left, they were the most prominent partner of this politics. And I